Seller's disclosure. What is it? Why do we need it? And when is it necessary? Well, here in the state of Florida, it states specifically that if a homeowner of a property knows of something that materially affects the value of the property but is not readily visible by the buyer, it must be disclosed to them. Now, in the state of Florida, it specifically states that although that these defects must be disclosed to the buyer, they're not required to be disclosed in writing. So sometimes you'll have sellers who give you kickback and say, well, I don't have anything to disclose. Why do I have to fill out a written seller's disclosure? Now, a written seller's disclosure is the only way to prove in writing that these disclosures were given from seller to buyer. That way there's no mystery behind this, or he said, she said, or I did tell them, and no, you didn't tell them. So what we do is we have a seller fill out a 5-page seller's disclosure that specifically asks them questions about the property. Has your roof ever leaked? Have you had any electrical issues? Have you ever had to replace your AC? Just general questions like this. Now, I don't know about you, but if I live in a house, I'm gonna know if I've ever had to replace my roof. Even if I'm an investor and I've never lived in the house, I'm still gonna know if I've ever had to replace the roof of my investment property. So if a seller ever tells you that they don't wanna fill one out or they haven't lived in the property, I would shy away from that, because when they fill out a seller's disclosure, it simply says, has your roof ever been replaced, or has your roof ever leaked? Yes, no, or I don't know. They could simply just check one of those boxes. Now, when I say that you have to disclose anything that they know about the property that may materially affect the value of the property, but is not readily observable by the buyer, here's an example. So say upstairs, one day one of the kids left the bathtubs running and the bathtub overflowed into the whole second floor. The sellers had to call a restoration company. They had to change all the floors and carpet upstairs and replace the drywall, whatever. It was a big deal, but now it's been fixed professionally and upstairs looks absolutely perfect. In fact, if you're a buyer and go upstairs, you'd never know that this problem existed in the first place. But according to the rules and the laws in the state of Florida, the seller still has an obligation to disclose that it happened to any potential buyers. Now, if the buyer moves into the house and later on maybe they're talking to a neighbor and the neighbor mentions, oh yeah, I can't believe that they fixed this horrible problem with the flooding they had upstairs, and then the buyer's like, say, come again? What did you just say? And they're like, well, yeah, they had a big flood upstairs. They had to replace everything. Once the buyer finds that out, they can actually go back and sue the seller for the seller not disclosing, so it's non-disclosure by the seller. And the seller could be liable for that. Now, most importantly, I want you at home watching this to know that if you're a real estate agent and your seller mentions something like this to you, and then you didn't disclose it to any potential buyers, you're just as liable as that seller who did not disclose it to any potential buyers. Remember, if you know it, you must disclose it. So if a seller ever discloses any information like this to you, well, now that you're a licensed real estate agent and you've been disclosed this information, you now have an obligation to disclose this to any potential buyers. So even if the seller doesn't disclose it, you now have the obligation to disclose it. So we always recommend the seller fill out a seller's disclosure and honestly fill it out with any information that they may know about the property. So there you have it, guys. Seller's disclosures, why it's important, when you need it, and what can happen if you don't properly disclose something about the house that will affect the value in the long run. If you like what you saw and you want some more information just like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow us for more videos. Take care.